Thanks so much. It's been a marathon GEC. This is really the gathering of some of the people involved in driving Gen locally. And we have, as you know, 4 remaining things happening today. We have another policy summit, we have an education one, and of course this is an opportunity for us to have a little bit more of an informal discussion around some of your thoughts around how we're building our vision on the ground in your countries. So what I wanted to do was, if I could, go a little bit further into emphasizing a few things that's changing about Gen's approach to operating at the national level. And to talk a little bit, if I can, about what our broader vision is, because we want your feedback on this, and we also want your engagement in terms of how this is going to move forward. I think the first thing is to mention, we are looking at a 10-year plan between 2025 and 2035. And as you heard in my speech on Monday, how many of you didn't hear my speech on Monday night? Anybody not here on Monday night? Great, okay. So as you heard in that talk, we are looking to select things that we can have an impact on as a global ecosystem that will help improve the ability of us as a wide collection of communities to improve what we can accomplish. And I've talked about the things that we want to accomplish. We want to be the new diplomats in a new way, but we also want to continue to be what we've always been, which is engines of economic growth, a means by which people who don't have opportunity receive it, and of course an opportunity for us to solve problems and be part of the solution. So I encourage you to take a look at that talk, but again, if you wish, there, as I say, every session here at the GEC, you'll find that there is a video of it. There's also an AI podcast of every session, which will allow you to hear a brief discussion after it among some AI commentators. But I think the important things I wanted to stress were, just to make sure as a refresher, we're going to be focusing on connectivity, most notably the new diplomats, and in particular, the new the tool that we'll be using is Ecosystem Connect. I have some slides on Ecosystem Connect that I can make available to you, which can walk through how that program works. We've got a Gen Connect set of tools, and one of them is targeted at how we're going to allow you to connect with the other ecosystems that you're operating with. That connectivity, as you heard, we're going to be doing it in partnership with those at a corporate level, with those in Hollywood. We're going to be looking at how do we move forward. We'll be blessed if our governments do a really good job at working together. But in the event that they don't, we want to make sure that it's not slowing down the progress of the work that we do, that we're still proceeding as fast as we can to share, to learn, to share networks, knowledge, and ultimately to better enable our entrepreneurs in our communities. So that's one thing. We're going to focus on connection. The other is, you heard me give a fairly hard-hitting set of statements about the fact that as an industry, we need to perform better. There is a rising level of, shall I say, skepticism from some of the funders in the public and private sector, about the growth of our industry and the fact that we're not necessarily achieving the kind of impact out of our individual entrepreneurship support programs that we should be trying to achieve. So we'll be focusing on that. You heard us talk about our Gen Catalyst Index. We'll be focusing on assembling some of the brightest minds around the world on an academic level. You've seen, for example, us honoring people like the folks doing the work at Stellenbosch, at the Compass Awards. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to, and indeed we have, the president of Babson here. We'll be deepening our partnerships with many universities. But the idea is to say, when you look at the ecosystem around you in your communities, what is ultimately, what are you proud of? What do you think should be sunset? Because we need to be a little bit more ruthless, not because of the people involved, but because collectively people have got their eyes on us. I just spent half an hour with the governor of Indiana, and he's, very keen to make sure that he takes a close look at everything they're spending money on, and is it really going to produce the desired results? And are those the results that in a post-AI world we should be focusing on? So a lot of questions. So this isn't so much criticism, it's introspection, it's making sure, as I articulated in my talk, that ultimately at the end of the day we're very proud of all the actors in the ecosystem and what they can achieve in the sum of the parts. The third thing I wanted to stress was that we'll be focusing on scale. So, of course, we began with this when we launched Global Entrepreneurship Week. We said the world needs more entrepreneurs, we need to do more campaigns, we need to reach into places that typically entrepreneurs are not coming from. The IDB in Latin America, for example, wants us to work on silver entrepreneurship with older entrepreneurs. We had the president of Junior Achievement Worldwide and YBI here this week. They're talking about how do we rally youth in a whole new way around the world. And they, together with Jen, we believe, can rally hundreds of thousands of young people towards entrepreneurship. So we're looking at saying, how do we scale everything that we're doing such that we've got more people trying? Now, if you're running an entrepreneurship support program, you are already incentivized to do that, even if you disagree with me that we don't have enough people trying, people with ideas, people with passion, because ultimately you want more customers coming in and demanding. If you're looking for funding and you've got a waiting list of people, if you're Techstars, for example, and you can only take 1% of the people that apply to Techstars into your program, the chances are you're doing a good job. The chances are that your program. So we want to have more people applying to more formally get involved in the ecosystem. And that begins with inspiring more people. Hence, a lot of the 2 sessions in these rooms on Monday, for any of you that were part of them, we're focusing on how do we change the narrative of the campaign? How do we use different words? How do we do different strategies to look to make sure that we have been able to get more citizens in our country coming into our ecosystem, more young people trying, more old people, more of the traditional constituencies. So that's the third thing we want to do. The world needs more entrepreneurship. I want to stress from a tactical basis, some of our priorities from programs will remain the same. We'll continue to deeply emphasize the Entrepreneurship World Cup. Obviously, as from Jen's perspective, this isn't about a business plan competition or a startup competition. Yes, that's what it is. We're very happy there's $1.5 million of undiluted money for founders. We're very happy that every single one of the 100 people that we fly to the finals, every single one of them, if you get them on video and you ask them their experience, they'll say, this was the most unique experience. And every single one of them walks away with either customers, investors, or a pathway to that. So we're very proud of that, okay? That's great. But, that's nothing new, doing a good competition. What we're really excited about is we get more people entering, because what you want to tell the founders in your community, if you enter this, upload your deck. It's very quick. If you're a founder, you're going to have a deck, okay? That's the beginning of your journey of support within Gen. We're going to connect you to the right people. We're going to look at every single deck. We have a whole army now of assessor mentors. We're going to look and say, okay, what does this particular company need? And we're going to look at that path at the same time as assessing whether or not you make it into the EWC 250 and into the EWC 100. And if there's one urgent thing I asked you to go away with after the GEC, we have a deadline for this year's applications by the end of June, so we'd really appreciate any immediate things you can do to alert founders that this is the time for them to enter for this year's competition. We will naturally also continue with Global Entrepreneurship Week for the very reason I mentioned. It fits into our strategy of the world needs more entrepreneurs. We will be continuing with most of our programs. We're not doing Gen Accelerates anymore. We're replacing that with our Gen Academies. And structurally at Gen Global, we've reorganized. We have Gen Ecosystems, which represents all the education and ESO programs. We have Gen Founders, which represents the now hundreds of thousands of founders in our network. As you know, we brought in 700 of them for this particular event. We have our Gen Investor community, which, you know, we've expanded beyond early stage investors and the Global Business Angels Network into venture capital and family funds. And then we also have, of course, our Gen Policy community, and the Gen Policy community, it will continue to work. Today they're working on state and local government policy, but typically we'll be working on national government policy. And so we're organized into at the global level, we're organized into those 4 areas for operations. And we'll continue in each of those areas to have flagship programs. But one of the things we'll do in each of those areas is we'll have a Gen Academy, which we'll be looking at teaching in there. We have a Gen Academy for ecosystem building. You'll see that you've got these models of ecosystem building charts put up on the walls of the village. If you haven't taken a look at them, do when you're getting your coffee. You'll see that we've also partnered with the creation of the entrepreneur, a new entrepreneurship organization that's going to be focusing on ecosystem building. So we'll look at, you know, all of these methodologies. We'll also have a Gen Academies for investors. We've been doing that already, and that's very, very active, where we're doing everything from early stage angel investor training to more specialized investment. And we will be doing a Gen Academy. We are doing a Gen Academy for policymakers, and we're doing a Gen Academy for as I said, policymakers, ecosystem builders, investors, and founders. And in each of those, we have a new model. We literally threw out all the expensive infrastructure we used to have in place. We've tossed the curriculum aside. I actually went through my bookshelf, because I have a top line in my bookshelf, and these are the really the greats of our time, the timeless advice, for example, that we're going to give founders. And I took those bookshelves and books, and I just, you know, one by one, I read them into the, you know, my favorite AI tool assistant, one of my many assistants, and went through what are some of the special things that we'd like to do, what kind of length of time, what methodologies, formats. And of course, within seconds, it'll naturally say, here's the recommended curriculum we do, here's what you should pull from this, here's the amount of time you should do, and here's how it should be structured. And then at Gen, of course, we now have a network of experts. So if you take Gen Academies for investors, we have 80 trainers. Most of which they don't work for us, of course, but they are available for us to contract with to support on those academies. So what that means is it's customized. So you can come and say, I'm interested in investor training for this particular industry, for this number of people, for this kind of length of time, and so that's the way we're going to be doing that. So some of the things we're moving away, so that transition from Gen Accelerates to our Gen Academies, we're not having a separate Gen Academies thing, we're doing it within each of our 4 departments. So I wanted to make sure I'd explain that and to explain the process of how that works. We will be having various new programs. You've heard them announced this week. We obviously have launched the Gen Catalyst Index, which will be this tool to allow us to assess what the performance is. I shouldn't say us, it'll be allowing you to assess what the performance is of the various entrepreneurial support organizations in your communities. And that is certainly a vital thing that we want to do. But in order to incentivize it, there's a new program for you to do with that, and that is for you to have your own Compass Awards at a national level. Now, why do I bring that up? Why do I suggest that? It's not just because we want to recognize and honor people and have a nice evening. We did some market testing with this, and we discovered that if you want people to report their data, because a lot of the data you need from all of those entrepreneurial support organizations has to be self-reported. But if you want them to report their data, unfortunately, the only way to do that, well, not only, but one incentive is that you tell them that we'll be recognizing the top 5 people in this field at the national awards. Now, you want to be part of that. And if your data isn't very strong, you want to tell them you have to start with a benchmark. And if you want to do this, you don't have to be public about it. Because a lot of people tell us, I want to give you my data, but I don't want to be considered for the public award because I'm not ready yet and I might be embarrassed by how my data compares to somebody else. But a lot of them will say, I'm really excited about my data, and we believe in a race to the top. We believe in recognizing merit, and I absolutely want to be considered for the award. So the idea is that in your partnership development, your ecosystem building work, your networking in your ecosystem, that's another tool in your toolbox to say, tell me about how you're doing. Are you measuring how you're doing? If you're not, we can give you tools to measure. And give us your data and be a candidate for the National Compass Awards ceremony that we will do. And of course, I'm pretty confident that you're going to find a sponsor for that dinner. Because what if you go to them and you tell the story that I tell in a certain country that I will remain nameless, that I sat at the table and I had an EU ambassador and she said, yeah, we've got $84 million euros in this country in entrepreneurship programs. And I went round the table, everybody, and I added up that, there were hundreds of millions of dollars going into these programs. And yet the people standing on the stage at that dinner were the ones being honored. And quite honestly, I just couldn't see the caliber of performance that should have come out of that investment. And you would typically, if you've got heads of organizations and ambassadors and things at that dinner, you typically try to put forth the best foot you can. I mean, you want to put the best people, so it wasn't like it was... and I think what it told us was there will be other people that support, especially governments, especially the payors, especially the sponsors. The corporates will turn around and say, so what's your mission here? It's not that I want to have a dinner. My mission here is that I want to make sure that we are digging deep into performance, and we want you to help us do that, because if we have this dinner, it'll be an anchor point to get people to report the kind of data that we need. So that's a new program. I think you'll see, in addition to the Gen Connect, so we now have Ecosystem Connect, we have Investor Connect, we have Mentor Connect, and we have Founder Connect. And those are all Connect platforms already live on the tool. Obviously, you have to have a Gen profile, which for some people it's annoying to have to create a profile, but once you create it, you've created it once and you're done. But that gives you access to that, and then on top of that, the Speakers Bureau. So we have these tools that will allow that connectivity between entrepreneurs and mentors and investors, and between ecosystems, and between those that are looking for speakers and those that want to speak at events. So that is in the platform. And one of the things we do, which is very selfless, I'm just going to say, because I wish it was the other way around, is that when you connect, we allow you to just frankly connect with each other on LinkedIn. We're not trying to own that connection. We're not turning around saying, oh, you've got to connect through the Gen website platform. No, we want you to find people that you think are going to be a good connection, and then to go ahead and use, a commonly used thing, and it doesn't have to be LinkedIn. You can pick other means of communication, but to be able to connect with people where you feel comfortable doing so. So we want to be the one that made the introduction. So we want to do the date, so to speak, between you and whoever it is. But at the end of the day, we're not trying to interfere in that conversation or engage in that. We don't require that conversation to happen on our platform. So those are some of the new things, the Gen Connect tools. I can give a deeper presentation on that later for anybody that needs it, or if you ask Peter, who will be your conduit to any of the other staff, we can roll those out for you. The Gen Catalyst, this ESO performance assessment tool, and those are two of the newest things that we're doing, but otherwise we'll be very much focusing on Entrepreneurship Cup, Global Entrepreneurship Week, Startup Huddle. We'll have the typical array of programs that we've tested, are still deeming to be useful and valuable to those of you. But I want to wrap up really with the biggest change that we're making, and it's one that I hope that you'll listen intently to, because it's complicated to really understand, and it's one that I want to make sure isn't offensive to some of you, because it is a shift in strategy. So how many of you were at the Global Entrepreneurship Congress in Milan? I know a handful are. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. So in that, we announced the idea that we wanted to create Gen affiliates. And in that, we were assuming that if we could give you what you needed, that you would be able to identify a strong board and that you would be able to go generate resources from your government agencies and your corporations and from perhaps licensing revenue, and that board would give you the contacts and influence to be able to do that. We assumed that for us was a selfless way of doing it because we didn't want to interfere. We didn't want to go into India with Yatin and presume that we knew how to have a conversation in a highly complex 1.5 billion person country, okay? We felt that would be a bit arrogant. What we wanted to do is to be the kind of behind-the-scenes global connectivity piece and the behind-the-scenes available supplier of tools and relationships. That model is working in some places. Some of you are in this room, in the Caribbean, in Jamaica. We love you, okay? You guys are amazing, and we just love what you're doing. In South Africa, it's working very, very well. I mean, did you know there are 33 employees for Gen in South Africa? So sometimes and that's always going to be an available model, but we're not emphasizing go and create a separate legal entity. We backed off that. We're like, hey, where there's so much going on and that makes sense, let's do that. We're now forming what we call national leadership committees. So we're asking you to create, you might hear the staff, because when we got this going, you might hear the staff refer to this as our N10. It was always a nickname for who's the top national 10 voices that we want to spend time working with at Gen Global in Colombia, in Bolivia, in Argentina. And we would essentially say, we want to invest the time at Gen Global. We don't want you to go out and form a separate board that might create an entity that would compete with other local entities. What we want to do is Gen wants to have a relationship with the leading entrepreneurship organizations or the right advocates. So in every country, we still want to have an ambassador. We want to have a representative. We want to have someone who can guide us. But at the end of the day, we want to develop those relationships with Gen Global. And part of the reason we're doing that is that we discovered that most of the well-funded work we've done around the world has happened because for some reason, what made us unique is that the funder was able to deal with Gen Global. And I didn't even think for a moment that that would mean a hill of beans of difference at the outset. I thought they wouldn't want to talk to us. I mean, I don't even speak Spanish, I figured they would want to talk to their own. They would trust their own. I mean, how would they trust us? It turns out that being part of a global thing was what was distinguishing us when we were trying to get resources from yet another local entrepreneurship support organization. And Camilo, I'm sure you can, articulate that dynamic many times. So what we're really encouraging you to do is to tell us, you don't have to know them, but who are the most important right people? And we've got our Gen research team led by Tom. Do you all know Tom? Have you all met Tom? Okay, we'll have to make sure that you meet Tom. All the team will be around for the rest of the day. By the way, how many of you are leaving before tonight? How many are leaving this afternoon? Nobody? Oh, Isla? All right. So I want to stress that we have a wonderful party tonight. Just our staff are hosting it for all of you. It'll be a lot of fun. So it's on the app, but it's really, really for the sort of Gen delegate community. But do come because I want to have, that's our chance to make sure that we connect. But I want to make sure at that party, we're asking all the Gen staff to be there, with the exception of Cristina Fernandez, who can't be there, but everybody else will be. So you've met all the other Gen staff. You'll know who does Gen research, who does Gen policy, who does Gen founders, okay? Stephen Rodriguez runs Gen Founders. You'll know who those people are. But coming back to what I'm trying to emphasize, we will be providing the research. We're doing our own research in each of your countries. It's not that we don't trust you, but we're doing our own research. And of course, now it's so easy because most of your ecosystems are mapped. There's tons of AI tools to make sure if if there's things that we're missing that we're not finding. We've got a lot of other organizations that met at this Congress to talk about how do we map ecosystems better. There's organizations like EcoMap, which announced a project they're going to test here in Indiana. But we're looking to say, do we know that we're working with the right people? And one of the things that Jen has always believed and still believes is that we can be somewhat independent. I had a guy that came up from me from Indiana. He says, I've been running Global Entrepreneurship Week in my community. And he said he was almost tearful. And I had no idea about this, but it was, a community in Indiana. And he said, the thing that's always worked about it is that you don't have a presence in Indiana. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, everybody gets involved because there's nobody owning the show. There's nobody trying to, empire build or something like that. It's a thing. It's a celebration. It's not someone stealing something from me as an organization in the ecosystem. And so we want to go on playing that role with you on the national level. But the difference is we don't want to just depend upon you, Isla, and the time and the resources you have. We want to depend upon at least 10 organizations in each country. And we want them to be part of the implementation of many of the things that we want to do, both GEN programs and what I call GEN partner programs, so things that we're endorsing, but we're not actually doing. You saw we had a lot of partnerships announced this week. I think 10 or 11 new funded partnerships, I might add, where we are working with people that we think do this better than us on other things, on very specific things. And we want to go on doing that with you at a national level. By the way, this isn't about GEN and funding. This is about making sure that we're working with the right people to have the right strategy in your countries, and that, to the extent that we're involved, that we're being a helping hand. As a member, as the king, by the way, in the corner over there, I have to say a joke here. Your king asked you to take a seat. No, guys. If you weren't there last night at the Africa party, they made me. The government of Cameroon made me king. Thank you. Somewhere on social media, there's pictures floating around of me wearing what he's got on. Similar, but anyway, a lot of fun. We like Africa Night being a tradition of the GEC. It always helps us to let our hair down. But no, if I could just point out, that is the biggest strategic change. Our big priority in each of your countries is to say, are we talking, and by the way, for those of you that have bigger countries, we're talking about in each ecosystem. In Singapore, we're talking about one ecosystem. However, when we're working in Canada, where is he? When we're working in Canada, we're talking about 7 or 8 different ecosystems. But in each of those, we're looking to say, how do we have you been able to get? Now, the value of this is maybe, and sorry, Isla, to pick on you, but I'm just, you're sitting right in front of my eyesight. So maybe Isla, with her connections through the MIT, and so maybe Isla, actually, despite all of her years, maybe there's people in the Israeli ecosystem that she doesn't know. That's probably not true, actually. You're a bad example. You probably do know them all. But some of them might not be as responsive to you as you wish. And so we hope that maybe an invitation to be part of this with Jen, to be part of what we call the National Leadership Committee with Jen, would be another way that you can bring value to them and have them see you as be a useful connector. And again, part of this was we're not trying to impose our brand and an organization and own anything. We want to have a loosely knit. I'm not allowed to use this word because they told me it doesn't work outside the United States, or it doesn't work in outside politics. But I tend to, in my head, think of it as I'd love to have a kitchen cabinet in every ecosystem. I'd like to know, who do we turn to and say, is this a dumb idea? What are we missing? Where are the gaps? Oh, what we're doing here is completely redundant. I remember Dave in New Zealand saying, the startup model is fine, but it's redundant here because we've got so many things we're doing that's almost the same. I'm not going to pursue it. Great, fantastic, So I really hope that that's a challenge that we give you. So just as a summary, we're going to go through and have some discussions, and Peter is going to lead some discussions at the tables, and I know others are going to be joining us. But I did just want to say once again, just to, so you've heard what we've said here. Our strategic priorities going forward are to increase connectivity, to increase performance, and to ensure that we have a significantly larger number of people knocking at the doors of our entrepreneur support organizations saying, I want in, I'm inspired, I want to be a builder. Secondly, I wanted to emphasize our program priorities by and large stay the same. They are all laid out in the impact report. If you haven't got your hard copies of the impact report, they're available if you want them. We'll have more brought into this room. And finally, I just want to stress that our preferred operation going forward, while we are continuing to be in with both hands and both feet to our Gen affiliates, the ones that have already been created, we're doing that. We want to make sure you know that either way, we want our Gen affiliates, or if they don't have an affiliate, our ambassadors, to seed the creation of what we refer to as this National Leadership Committee. And just to stress on that, where we have a Gen affiliate, then the Gen affiliate would be naturally part of that National Leadership Committee, if not leading it. And so we're very, very keen to emphasize that. We will have Gen Research, as I said, led by Tom. We will have Tom Hancock. We will have Gen Research doing our own research. And then many of you may have heard from Tom or Peter or someone on our team, but essentially what happens is we shared our research with you, and you might laugh at it and say, well, isn't it interesting? AI is really not very good. But at the end of the day, we socialize that research with you and say, oh, what do you think? Are these the right people? Who are we missing? And we ask you to be impartial about that and to tell us who are the right people and how do we make that work. So that's our national vision going forward. And those are our program priorities. And that's our global vision going forward. And I hope, strongly emphasize to you, take note and share the talk that I gave on Monday evening, which sort of outlines our priorities. We're trying to walk a fine line between making sure that those who believe that we need to focus more on our very local communities in our nations, what I often call the sort of isolationist movement, feel as comfortable in this as those of us that continue to take a global view of the world. But either way, it's going to support entrepreneurship. So thank you so much indeed. Now we're going to get into the fun part, but I did want to talk that through with you, and we'll get into a discussion, and every question you have is valid. When are we doing the questions, Peter? So thank you very much.
I think this is on. So, Jonathan, we have a photographer in the room.
Oh, okay.
I think it would be a good idea if everybody could come up here, and we'll take a quick picture of everybody with Jonathan, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yep. And then we'll go into question and answers after we've gotten up, stretched our legs.
Now you are.
Okay.
Now you're gonna be in the front.
Yeah, in front of this.
Okay, so we'll get back to our seats. You guys, you don't have to sit in the same place if you want to take the opportunity to move around, but I know you put your stuff down. We still have Jonathan for a little bit. I thought we'd go right into question and answer session with Jonathan. So we've got 2 microphones. Just a second, Jonathan's taking care of business.
Yeah.
Okay. Jonathan's going to have to step out, the governor of
Sorry, I
Indiana.
have to do just one thing with our host, and I'll be right back. This is where my heart is, by the way. But Peter's going to start, and then but hold on to your questions and your comments.
Yeah, I think we can take a break right now, and then we'll come back in 10 minutes. I've got an exercise for all of us to do, and then we'll go into Q&A. Okay? So you can go get your coffee, and then you can bring it back into this room.
Designed this speaker to amplify my thoughts so people will quit asking me for sandwiches. That should work, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, Space Ghost.
Go ahead,
My
Mohawk.
show was...
Yeah, we poked you with sticks till you fell down. Remember?
You sure I didn't harness the power of the sun?
No, it's definitely sticks. Beaten with sticks.
All right, go get 'em. How's it going, man? Ow! No! You got him out! Ow! Not there! Ow! Ow!
Are you still here?
Welcome to the program.
I'm sorry. I thought the show was over.
It started?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Hi. Microphone? Okay. Hi. As we all get settled back in, I have a favor to ask you. So if I can have your attention for just a minute. I don't know the best way to do this. I'm going to videotape you. I am definitely going to videotape you, Cheryl. For sure, for sure. Okay. What I would love to do is, yesterday was Stephen Gasikawa's birthday, Chad Renando's birthday from Australia. They're not here right now, but I would love for you to sing happy birthday all together. I'm going to videotape you. And we'll get you cake and this gentleman's going to take us for cake and ice cream afterwards. Okay. Oh, how many languages? I don't know. That would be amazing. Okay, so we're just going to sing happy birthday. I'm going to put down the microphone. I'm going to get you all to sing, and then we'll have the Q&A with Jonathan. He's taking his jacket off, which means he's ready for the hard questions. Okay? So, all right. Who has and I'm just going to walk around and videotape you, okay? All right, Gary?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Stephen. Happy birthday to you. There we go.
Do you know that it was the English people trying to sing Spanish?
Okay, before we get started, I just want to say, how many of you have a Jen T-shirt from previous GCs? Well, there's a few people that decided that this was not the most interesting session of the morning and aren't here. So for those that came this morning, I will make sure that you get a Jen T-shirt 2025 edition. It'll be very, very rare. We didn't make many of them. They'll be on eBay for $300 next year. No, we have a lot of GC T-shirts if you want one of those too, but the Jen T-shirt, only for you. Actually, this year, the Jen T-shirts went to all the volunteers. So we gave them a volunteer, but which is wonderful. But no, I know one or two people tell me they collect the T-shirts, and so we'll definitely give you one. Oh, someone's got one in the back. Oh, is that the edition? Would you like to be a model, Gary, and come and stand up here? Turn around, turn around. No, you can buy them, but you guys don't have to buy them. But they are for sale. And by the way, speaking of which, No Bad Ideas, a lot of people are implementing that game. If you want a copy of that, don't forget to ask at the Gen booth. Obviously, Gary and Peter can point you to where they are if you can't find them. Naturally, some of you, to avoid shipping fees, would like to buy some pins. If you want some of those for your campaigns, pick them up now, because then you can throw them in your bag. Sure. Are you able to bring up a website at all on the screen without notice? I don't know. But that's fine, actually. You know what? It'll be fine. So we have a game called No Bad Ideas. It's a card game. It's done in groups like this. We can show you a video of a group doing it. We've got videos, actually, we got Spanish version too, explaining the joy of the game. How many of you were in Puerto Rico that might have participated in that? Okay, because in Puerto Rico is when we actually launched it, but it is essentially a game for people to learn about ideation. And it's a great tool for GEW. And certainly, I encourage you to take a No Bad Ideas home with you. we're selling them, but Peter, I think we'll make that another reward for coming this morning and not sleeping in late after the Africa party. And we know who you are because, very clever, whoever thought of that photograph. We know who you are because we've got a picture of you. So, sorry, I shouldn't be mean to all the other people. I know that they've got good reasons not to be here. But anyway, the No Bad Ideas card game, T-shirt, and you all got a backpack. You should have got a little tag, swag tag when you checked in that enabled you to go trade it for a backpack. Did anybody not get one? No? Okay, good. Any problems, see Peter or Gary, because they'll set you up. So this year we decided to do some of the swag, and I know some people push back and say, please don't do it because it's not good for the environment. But it's been since 2019 that we did a backpack. So we thought it's time for it. You guys may need a new one. So anyway, thank you so much indeed. Q&A. This is where I'd love to... yeah, and you were about to come up and say something to me, so I'm going to get you to start. But let's go around and get feedback to what I've said, the strategy I laid back, and yeah, why don't you go first?
All right, thanks.
By the way, or comments or criticisms or questions, and just it's not Q&A. It's like let's have a conversation about it. Your feedback.
Okay. All right. On Monday, I was asked, what is it that I wanted to get most out of GEC? And my response was, I want the Caribbean to be included in research data that GEN publishes, because we ain't. And hearing what you have said, my question to you, I'm going to make some more comments, but I have a question. In building out our ecosystem, as a matter of fact, in capturing our ecosystem, in small island states like the Caribbean, we got to go in hills and valleys and whatever. And that was part of what we aspired to do in Jamaica. But sponsorship has been a challenge. So I'm not sure, and I'm trying to understand exactly when you say you're going to do research in countries for yourselves. I am looking to see how is it that the research that you're doing can help us achieve our goals there. How can we collaborate to ensure that GEN Global is not looked at as being separate and distinct from GEN Jamaica, but we are one and a family getting this thing done? Because it will create a problem if they see differences in the approaches, or even observing that they may have been doing it on their own. But it is something that we need done. Research, we want to see our efforts being captured in what is done globally.
Okay, I'm just making a note here because you actually gave me multiple questions. So first of all, the last part of my strategy says you're GEN, all right? You're also got an affiliate, that's important, but you're part of GEN. So I hope everybody wants to, because it's too confusing for people to keep thinking, you know, is it GEN this, is it GEN that? For the outside world, it's GEN, okay? You are all part of GEN. Second thing is on the research. Let me clarify, there's two things I talked about that are very distinct. One is, if there's a demand in your market for better evaluation and assessment work of the actors in the ecosystem, we are designing the GEN Catalyst Index. So far, we haven't funded it, okay? It's not our fund. We're funding the creation of the, we're looking at like 13 different environments where people evaluated, like for example, the UK accelerator assessment process, you know. So we're looking at all the DNA of how do you actually evaluate it effectively in a globally harmonized way. But you have to find someone that's going to pay you to do your part on the ground, which is to collect. So we're giving you another tool for that. The other part of the research is understanding who the actors are in the ecosystem. Now, that is something that we are doing at the global level. We're doing our own research as to did Camino identify all the right actors, or did he forget a few people? But generally speaking, in your case, you know who they all are, but that is something we want to collaborate with you on. But we are actually conducting our own initial set of research first. We'll come to you with the research. Some of you have already done that with a representative of Gen, and then we will. So we will collectively be perceived as Gen doing that together. Correct. So, but the Gen Catalyst Index, we can't afford to fund it in every country. If we make it work, we might get global funders. That'll be another thing we put on the list when we're talking to organizations. Like, would you like to fund it like the World Bank funded the Doing Business study, or, et cetera, et cetera. So, does that answer the question? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, no.
Hi. Thank you for this opportunity, Jonathan. It's been almost 2012. It's a long journey.
By the way, everybody should know everybody, but just in case there's a newcomer, you all know he's from Pakistan, yeah?
Thank you. Kashif Khan from Pakistan.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I look at Gen Global's journey, I see an organization that's successful, that's innovative, that has seen its highs and lows, but it has a brand, it has a presence, it has an entity. But when I look at organizations like Pakistan and so many other of my friends, we are still struggling, and I think you know that. One of the key reasons is that stability that we want to bring to this organization. Because, like, for example, me and my team, it's a lot of volunteer work that we do, but our day jobs are different. For that, Jonathan, I want to know that if I want to go this path, which Gen Global has, I would like to have some personalized mentoring. So things that you have talked about today make a lot of sense. But of course, to do that, I'll have to, spend time, money, and, invest on people. But I want to take things at a time. I can't take all of them together. But saying that, we are a very successful brand as far as Pakistan is concerned. Through the whole length and breadth of 230 million people, we are now a known brand. But, I need more stability. I need to put my feet and roots now there so that people know that this organization can deliver something valuable to the ecosystem, which it has. So my comment and my question is that I would need that one-to-one personal coaching and mentoring, for which I'm willing to give my time and effort. But I want to, go this path that you people have and make a good example for others to follow.
Okay. So thank you for that. That's good to know. I mean, the good here is that you want to do it. So that's fantastic. That's the easy bit is the mentoring. Now, what we've done so far is attempted at the GEC every year. Maybe we haven't communicated directly enough about what we're trying to do, but is to provide you with that technical support and guidance. Now, I'm just going to give you some examples because it's also going to help me address another matter that was raised from Jamaica. And that is, you'll notice that we put on very deliberately a sustainability and business model workshop for you on Monday. How many of you were in that? Okay. Well, you've got the video, and we've got talented people around. So Natalie led that with Alejandra and our team. And just to let you know, I coached Alejandra, and we've brought 9 or 10 new philanthropic partnerships, funding partnerships to Gen in the last few months. So we know the methodology works. It's hard work, but we can't raise money locally. Every now and again we get lucky, and we've got funding for which they're willing to give the funding to us, and we can then come to you and execute. And I've got 3 or 4 countries where we're doing stuff like that. But most of the time what we can do is provide you with that mentorship is here's what you need to see. But I want to really emphasize the brand you're promoting is the Gen brand. the way you promote it is that you use all the programs. You're very good in Pakistan about doing that about GEW, which is obviously the most effective way to sort of tempt interest from people who are who are not aware of it. But also, I put it to you that it's not necessary to have everybody aware of the Gen brand. You know, I mean, we of course are all thrilled in this room if everybody knows who Gen is. Like in Saudi Arabia, I don't have anybody anymore that doesn't know who we are. I mean, literally. I mean, we did a GEC at a time when anybody interested in the space came to that. We had nearly 12,000, people from Saudi Arabia alone. So when you look at South Africa, very few people in our field don't know who we are. And so what we're trying to do there is achieve respect, excellence. You heard me talk about it with Mark Cuban yesterday, and with Brad on Tuesday. I was very deliberate about picking those guys, by the way, because they're all do good, do well entrepreneurs. I'm not just interested in talking to a super successful, wealthy person. I want to talk to someone that understands that a core part of that ingredient is giving first, is humanity, is all the things that we talk about. And so that is part of what we try to do. But I do think that on the revenue side of things, I want you to look at that workshop. We can provide that kind of mentoring. And part of the reason that we've divided up so many of our programs under our departments is that we can provide that kind of support for the program. But yes, we can continue to do the mentoring. It may not be possible for us just because of stretched resources to do one-on-one mentoring, but we can do it in smaller groups. So maybe you can think about who are the countries for which there would be an affinity if you were to do it together. And ideally, you talk to each other and come to us and say, we'd like to do Moldova, would like to hook up with countries near Moldova or facing similar challenges or with a similar either political structure or size economy or maturity of ecosystem, however you want to do it. And we can do it. And ideally, you say, here are the ideas we get. We've seen the videos on this. We've seen the videos on that. That's all fine. But here are the things we'd love to be able to dig deeper in. So let us know where you want the mentoring rather than us just asking AI in our field, what should we tell you? You tell us what would be most useful to know. But I just want to stress again, we are not trying, and if you want to, we are thrilled because to us that's great. You've moved from ideation and brand and initial customer interest, you've moved it all the way to getting ready to scale it. But we are not expecting or requiring you to get a board of directors and build an organization. So I don't recommend you spend your time mentoring yourself on that. So in Algeria, for example, we've got a different model. We do have to have a legal entity in order to do some of the projects we want to do in Algeria. Is anybody from Algeria here? No. But we have a new managing director from Algeria. But like with Saudi Arabia, we opened a branch. Now, I don't really talk about that very much because, quite frankly, it's nothing more than mechanics. It's behind-the-scenes mechanics. It's still Gen, okay? But in some countries, yeah, it's useful to have a legal entity to execute things, but that's not our priority. I mean, sometimes that becomes necessary for, for operational reasons, and that's the reason to do it. But generally speaking, don't focus on the mechanics. Focus on, are we having the right conversation with the right people here? Do we have the right programming? Are we focused in a forward-thinking way about where the ecosystem needs to go? That's what the brand needs. It doesn't need operational infrastructure. So on the mentorship thing, we want you to think, we decided these programs actually are still relevant, so we think that they're the ones to focus on. On the mentorship stuff, I suggest you focus on how do I achieve excellence in one or two ways. In some countries like Bangladesh, they're doing every program and they're doing them very well. And same with South Africa. Some countries just focus on one. I mean, actually, in Canada, we pretty much only do Global Entrepreneurship Week and some policy work, and that's just because, those haven't been built out yet. But just, that's what I'd say on the mentorship side of things. So anybody else think it's a good idea to form little clusters for the mentorship? Maybe there's 4 or 5 of you that are interested in the sustainability piece. Somebody else is interested in Maybe it's hey, maybe I can get India and Pakistan loving each other, coming together on the same call for mentorship.
We do love each other.
Okay, so we got Alessia from Moldova. They'll turn on the mic when you stand up. Yeah.
For me, it's very interesting right now because I'm also developing what is in my final step of the dissertation, and that is a great time because I've seen the ecosystem models and the matchmaking around the thematics. I'm very interested in the sustainability part of it, but also in the zero-waste circularity part of it. I've done research for the last 10 years in those topics, and if anyone, and I think the thematic approach works very well because it's applied to also the cities, but also the industries. And if someone is interested in co-working and developing these thematic approaches, I would be very willing and interested, particularly in the tourism sector, fashion sector, but also creative and sustainable city applied, like innovation, how we build innovation ecosystems around it. So this is an invitation for anyone interested, and you can find me, Jen Moldova.
Right, great example. Now, by thematic, you mean it could be either around an industry or
geography. Because I really worked on the concept taken from Eisenberg, also Bradfeld, but also Right to Start from Victor Wang, and I have applied in my thesis and also in my research. And I'll be working most probably with North Carolina in that regard. So I was talking already to Gary and also see how they apply it to counties like Wake Forest. And because I've done that also through program exchanges in different countries and also Sweden and some other countries. And now this research should be kind of systematized into one paper dissertation that is going to be published next year.
Okay, so that's one of the benefits of Ecosystem Connect, is that you can say, I'm interested in working with people that are interested in either this particular industry. And by the way, on all of these Connect platforms, there are Gen certified and Gen non-certified. Everybody can opt in, but there are people that we will say they are certified by Gen. And you'll see a little Gen logo on the top right, very tiny. It's very nondescript, but that's what it means. You know that this is somebody that we at Gen Global would say we know we can vouch for. I would just point out that, so for example, we're trying to get a group together around developing Gen Campus. We had a session here. We've got CIC, Tim Rowe, who runs and built Cambridge Innovation Centers. He's got 4 or 5 campuses. He's opening a new one in Israel coming up. And we've got 3 Gen campuses and another one in the works. We've got others that are doing various campus models. And we're getting asked more and more about one thing I never expected would happen, which is we'd like to have a global campus model. So we have the head of Google North America on our board of directors for Gen Global. We have Google.org involved with us. We have Google for Startups. We have Google AI team. They're all involved with Gen. And one of the things we got is Google campuses. Spain, Rio, Japan, Europe. So we're coming together on campuses. So that's an example of a kind of group that can form, rather like people used to do with Slack groups, but a group that can form that's got a common interest in how do we establish campuses. So I appreciate that input, and I think if people want to form groups on different topics, they've got to communicate with the rest of the team. So, Yatin, you like this strategy or not?
I love the strategy. I think there has been a lot of discussion going on, and especially from the time I transitioned out of India, the major role was that how do we kind of bring in new leadership in the country, right? I've been a part of Gen family, I think, for last 11 years, and I was probably amongst first 5 MDs when you had bet on me in 2016 in Colombia that go ahead, set up the entity. It's been a long journey, that's what I could say. Frankly, there is nothing right or wrong. There's no set playbook. I remember for the longest time before launch of GES 2017, Jonathan would come to me and say, Yatin, where's your board? where's your national strategy? And I was like, I don't know how to do this. There's no playbook. How should I set it up? And Bouquet would send me like a standardized template, which was pretty much empty. It just said that you got to have something in place, but we really didn't know what to do. But I think, Jonathan, what you announced with the National Leadership Committee, the Gen Catalyst Index, and the localized Compass Awards, I think all three are great things to do to recognize the local community. So if I can take a step back and give a brief about what we have done in last 7-8 years in India. We formed our legal entity in 2017. We have had delegates coming with us to different GECs and even to GEC pluses since 2016. And obviously we saw that from India, it's a price-sensitive economy. So we saw more delegates coming in when it was closer to India than traveling far west or even far east towards Melbourne. We managed to work with 16 states. We ran programs. We built our own programs back in the days, which worked, and it was all because of the Gen brand. People partnered with us, enterprises partnered with us, governments showed trust in us primarily because it was for the Gen brand, and obviously we have met a lot of our leaders at Gen forums. Today we are at a place where our ecosystem is already built because the government really pushed the whole mandate of Startup India. And from there, the states started adopting the whole mandate. They started coming up with different policies, and ESOs came in every state. So today we have an incubator, accelerator, and a local young professional organization working in different states. So they are doing fabulous work. So at this point of time, we feel that at a Gen level, we got to do something above all of this. And I think this National Leadership Committee is the answer to that. And if we can recognize those leaders, that's the right way to go. Yes, we did face sustainability challenges too, Kashif, and I think that was the case with most of us. We did get programs to sustain us for a small duration. But I think, again, as an MD, as a leader, what I can say is you got to figure out what works for you. I think, Jonathan, from the beginning, since I think 2017 or 18, when we decided to form Gen Asia, at least for our group within Asia, there was a lot of focus on cross-border collaboration. We proposed it. We created a G Asia Pass, which we later thought should become G Pass.
Yep.
I think in some ways, today, at least I was able to build a product on top of it, out of a neutral territory where we could bring in people from rest of Asia to go global. So, and that business model works for us. So if anyone wants to chat about it, I'll be more than happy to discuss about things. But I think for each of us, the business model will be very different. We can just kind of talk to each other and figure out what aligns with us. There are some people who are very focused on research. There are some people who are very focused on the academic side of things. And then there are some people who are hardcore entrepreneurs like me who focus on investments and acceleration and growth. So I think if we can kind of have those maybe role models or your ambassadors, as you say, who specialize in a few things, if they can come in and share their experience, I think that'll be a good way to support rest of the community.
Fantastic, yeah. And I think, thank you, Yatin, for that. And, and I think that's something that we think tends to happen naturally, which is that people do something really well, I mean, in obvious cases, if you do want to go down the campus route, which we've got a lot of pressure to do, I would turn around and say, talk to Kazita about how to do it. But I think you're also asking for experts and role models from within Gen and not about Gen, but about about other topics. But that's the reason we want to increase the connectivity, and that's the value proposition. I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing the Gen Global Vision. I'm Rosemary, Gen Uganda. I'm on the board. And so my question is around what we're proposing, the National Leadership Committees. Gen Uganda, for instance, it's a legal entity, and we have a board of volunteers that represent sections of the ecosystem. So what we want to understand is, do we then dissolve the boards and then replace them with the committees? Because we want to understand. And I think probably if you can go ahead and give us some kind of standardized template so that we know how we install this. Because typically in our country, if you make it a national committee, of course you broaden then the expectations from the membership. And so we are saying, so who appoints this committee? Is it Gen Global that's going to support us to appoint the committees? And then once that is done, whom do the committees report to? So a bit of those issues, I think if you can give us a bit of clarification to help us to understand. Thank you.
That's great. And thanks to you and Charles and Mary and everyone for coming. We really appreciate it. The first thing is to say is that absolutely not. We don't want to undo anything that's already occurring. So we have Gen Uganda that is critical and that's moving forward effectively. And our prioritization in terms of getting any committees going, naturally we're much more focused in places where we don't have an affiliate. But to answer your questions, the national, and maybe the word committee will get changed because we're releasing this with you so that we can discuss the model, but it's not designed to be a committee that reports to anybody. It's designed to be a group of advisors. That's why I called it a kitchen cabinet. It's a group of advisors that Gen Global asks to be an advisor, and that we consider them to be, and there's no, you can't do a one-size-fits-all of how many advisors you have. In some places it might be as few as 5. Some places in the UK, we tested this, and there's like 60 people that want to be an advisor. So it's really a sounding board, a place that we can go. So there's no reporting of the committee. It's not a formal, but we will, in some cultures, we will have a, we do have a label for it. You do get invited by Gen Global. And as far as Gen Uganda is concerned, I think as I mentioned previously, as far as we're concerned, you're the chair of that advisory group in the sense that, you're the most important advisor that we're going to go to. What we don't want to do is put all the eggs in one basket for the reasons that many of you come to us and said. Number one, for some of you, this is not a full-time job. Okay, this is a day job. This is not a day job. For some of you, you've got multiple hats you wear and you have to do multiple things. So we don't want to depend at Gen Global to say, look, I can probably depend in South Africa because we have 32 people who their paychecks got the compass on it, okay? It's not our, it's the local entity compass, but the point is we've got, it's exclusively dedicated because they've got a business model that's, mostly through the campus, but through various programs that are working. So, but hopefully that answers the question. So you do not have to change anything you're currently doing. Think of it as we're going and using the global brand to say, let's help surround you with even more people. Maybe there are people, one or two cases, it's going to be people who actually think they compete with you, or they don't like you, or they don't know you, or you don't know them, But the idea is we're just expanding the number of advisors we've got so that we can get advice and input going forward. And so it might be that we roll out a new program. Let's give an example of the Gen Catalyst Index. We can come up with the templates, the tool, and the model. We're going to look for somebody to get some resources locally to be able to collect that data and to host that dinner. So it may be that we might go to others in Uganda that maybe you don't particularly want to go to right now and say, is this something that you can come up with ideas of how we might resource this? So it's more like an advisory board. So in fact, I'm so glad you asked this question. Maybe the word committee is not a good committee. I think we hurriedly came up with something because they told me to stop calling it the kitchen cabinet. But does anybody, by the way, use that term in their country? Kitchen cabinet? Well, I'm really glad I asked that question because, yeah, and you get the concept is it's like, you know, people you invite over to your kitchen and they sit down and have a coffee and they're people that you know and trust and you can ask them anything and you just say, what do you think? You know, it's basically your friends. But, you know, so maybe we'll consider it more of a Gen Global advisory board that can supplement what you're already doing as an affiliate. So other questions? And we have one here. Did I answer the question, by the way? Okay, wonderful. I think we got next one over here. Yeah, go ahead.
Is it on? Yeah. I'm Peter. I'm from Denmark. I want just to rewind a bit on securing funding and making the affiliates more robust. And there's a lot of things to do, but I really think that we leave a lot of money on the table. We've been successful in raising funds from a lot of the US firms, like 5 out of the max 7, fueled money into the Global Entrepreneurship Week in Denmark. But it's getting harder because they regionalize more and more. On the other hand, there are a few multinationals in Denmark that might as well do, when they fund us, they're looking on how can they activate and replicate what they've done in Denmark with other countries. So we can pitch the national story and you can pitch the global story. And with a background in marketing, you know that you need at least to put half your budget in the activation part. So from our point of view, we are fighting more and more to attract attention to Denmark from the multinationals that is not headquartered in Denmark. It's still possible, but that could be, you know, Google or whoever. When you have this guy in your board from Google North America, you could say, hey, what are your peers in other countries, and, you know, help us facilitate a concrete dialogue. When I work with Maersk or Novo Nordisk or whoever it is, I can only cover a small territory, but I would like also to push this and how we worked and the context to, you know, other countries with, you know, concrete persons you can go and ask, and I would be happy to introduce any country to what we have been doing. But I don't. Yesterday you had, you know, PayPal and Alibaba. I don't work with these guys, and they do have people all over, and they are interested in activating this global partnership. So I think that we should be better at utilizing our concrete contacts and corporations to empower other countries to work with them from a local perspective, but also from a global perspective. And how do we facilitate that, both from your point of view globally, to who could be Denmark with PayPal and Alibaba, and the other way around, how can I get, you know, Novo Nordisk to support potentially 200 countries?
No, I think that's a great input, and I certainly think. Forgive me putting things into buckets, but but I would consider that to be one of the things that we can be doing as an element of our sustainability strategy, which is you come across a Novo Nordisk and you think they're interested in other markets, to let us know that. One of the things we are getting told, and this is hard to tell you, but one of the things we get told is we want to do the contracting and give the resources to Jen. And sometimes that's because we're an established nonprofit organization, and they, you know, it's easier for them internally. They turn around. So from a mechanical perspective, we think it makes sense for Jen to try to coordinate that. But 1,000%, in fact, most of the time we don't have people like Google that have budgets in different parts of the world or Novo Nordisk. Usually they tell us, it's one global budget for the size of the organizations. But 100%. And what we're trying to do is sort of de-emphasize putting that resources into building a gen operation, which we sort of emphasize putting those resources into the programs that are the most important on the ground. So 100% agree with you. I think it makes a lot of sense, and we should pick up on that conversation because I've made a note here. I stepped off to make sure I get my pen back because I think we should think about how we do that. But the most important way is that Alejandra Molina out in New York, who's the director of Gen Invest, which oversees what we're also doing from a leadership perspective in bringing new actors to the table. One of the things we do is we do probably what you did in Denmark. We'll have a conversation with an organization and we try to sit there and work out where they're coming from, what do they want to do, and then we can then say, I think they're really interested in these 3 markets. Like I've come across 3 organizations right now interested in Japan, okay? So I know, what to do. And in some instances, we can direct them to you because we can say, hey, guess this is what they're interested in, you. But in some instances, it may be that they don't want to work with an unknown entity in Japan. They want to work with us, and then they want us to get the right talent in Japan, for which the right talent in Japan for us is it will be determined by our national leadership. And we turn around and say, look, we got this opportunity. I was just in Japan last week. Crazy, I know. But I went to Osaka to launch a new program we're doing with Expo. And, think about it. I didn't talk about this today, but it's fun. Think about it. You got Expo, and you got all the world coming together with their pavilions. And I wandered around, and the only country that talked about entrepreneurship or innovation was Switzerland. They had on display in their pavilion all of their inventions. I'm not sure they really did. They claimed that they invented E equals MC squared, which I'm not sort of sure about that. Apparently he lived there for enough years that they claim that. But anyway, whatever. And so we launched an Exponeur program where we're going to we're encouraging more and more booths. I met with the Chinese, I met with the Swiss, the Dutch, various other countries, and said, what we want you to do for your next pavilion. And believe it or not, they're already designing the next pavilion. And we want to make it all about making sure that it's about entrepreneurs and innovators and things. Every country's got to do what they want to do, but we want to have a few more doing it in a global environment. So, but just to say, I think it's a lovely idea, and certainly, and I think, Peter, in the case of Denmark, it's a classic reason why we really think that the national leadership makes sense because, I've probably got 10 people already over the years that I would call and talk to about what we should and shouldn't do with Denmark. You're at the top of the list, but it's like, I like the fact that from our perspective, we can get some different perspectives. But I think on the fundraising part, 100% agree. That makes a lot of sense. Did I understand where you were going with that? And I think, I like the idea of us sharing knowledge of global companies. And just to let you know, you probably didn't pick this up in my speech, but we formed a partnership with Meridian, which is kind of like a quasi-State Department, but it's going to be super important going forward. In Washington, D.C., the Meridian Center for International Understanding has a beautiful building. In fact, Jen does all our events there. It's just fantastic. And they have a fantastic corporate council. And we're doing, they are leading on the, you'll see a website eventually for this, but, they're leading on our New Diplomats initiative with the corporate side of things. And one of the things I hope to come out of that is we'll learn about which companies are actually taking a global view but might have interest in specific markets. So it's great input. And Google is a good example, by the way, of where I will ask them. I'll say, look, which parts of the world are you struggling in? So they already told us they want to do stuff in Saudi Arabia. They're actually looking to invest in the countries that are listening to them when it comes to preparing their ecosystem for the AI world. You heard us talk. Did anybody hear we launched our new Apex report, Startup Genome? Thanks. But you'll notice, take a look at that. It's a really, really interesting report. Guess what's number one this year in our Apex report? Kenya. Kenya. Who would have thunk? Kenya. You know why? Because we changed the model. Rather than saying who's got the most number of exits, who's got the most amount of capital, blah, 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 we said who's made the most amount of progress in the recent past based upon the assets that you had at the first place. So it's rather like when we teach kids, rather than turning around, what you want to look is you're looking for improvement and you're looking for an appreciation of, are you actually getting all the ingredients on the kitchen counter before you start cooking? And, so then we're going in and saying, hey, by the way, there's no way you're going to cook a lamb stew if you don't have any lamb, And so we're saying, and so it's not about how many exits you have or how well capitalized your market is. We're saying it's about how much progress you made with the available resources you've got. I'm super excited about this because it's a lot more inclusive of what I'm afraid. I'm a big advocate of rewarding performance. I like to really people making an effort and doing well. I really want to go in and say well done. All right, I'm going to have a slight interruption before the next question. Camilo, stand up so we don't lose the momentum here. But if you've asked a question before anybody else comes in, we're going to invite other people in at noon, but before anybody comes in, if you didn't get a T-shirt, because you are the elite T-shirt crowd, in fact, we'll call you the elite T-shirt crowd. How's that? Okay. You can go to the back and, oh, Cecilia, how nice, you've set them out. And you can get a T-shirt, but don't all get up at once. Go one at a time so we don't interrupt. But I want you to get it before other people come in because they're for you first, and we're going to run out. So, no, just one at a time, guys. They're not listening. All right. Okay. By table then. Good idea. I didn't think of that. You guys are smarter than me. Okay. You had a question, Camino. Do you want to wait? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good morning. I'm Vera from Namibia, and my question is perhaps just a bit of clarification I need with regards to what you expect from the advisory committee, because you have mentioned they are the advisory committee, which I'm assuming will not be the implementers of the programs. And recently, Namibia set up kind of a committee of all entrepreneurship support hubs. And that committee is called Scale Up Namibia. And the intention is for all of these hubs and different stakeholders within the ecosystem to work together to identify what are the specific gaps within the ecosystem and so on. So my something I'm putting forward here is just to say, from where I stand, is there a possibility this committee or advisory board for Gen Global within Namibia will be seen as a competing committee with Scale Up Namibia? And if that is it, how is that going to be managed for?
Yep. So, great question. Just to repeat the question that was asked, what if we've already got committees set up, and in the case of Namibia, we've got something called a scale-up committee? Is this going to be redundant? Is it going to compete? How does it work? So let me first of all say our national leadership in each country might be involved in implementing programs. So if we have a program, we're going to go to them and say, and I'll give you an example. There's an organization in Canada called Futurepreneur, okay? And they love Global Entrepreneurship Week because it all fits with it. They're not really interested in implementing anything else. That's all they're focused on, okay? And that's all they want to do. So it might, they're on our leadership team for Canada, okay? So it could be there's an organization, and that is a good example, that says, actually, I'm interested in leading on this. Like there could be a research university that says, I'm really interested in this Gen Catalyst Index. let's see what we can do in order to take the lead on that. So it is possible that they are the lead implementer of something that's relevant to them, already fits into their strategy. Secondly, regarding the competition, I think we're inviting them to be advisors. We're not requiring them to do anything. All right? We're not saying you have to do something. We're saying, do you want to be advisors to the global level? That is a different thing to this is a national thing which is made up, it's got more of a formal thing, probably reporting to a government agency or it's funded, I think that's sufficiently different. And there's probably expectations of that scale-up committee. There's probably, got a report they have to produce. They've got, commitments to do. So I would consider this to be, from their perspective, not another obligation, but another opportunity to maintain their connectivity to other ecosystems and to articulate outside the country what some of the needs and demands are and opportunities they see. I will tell you, some have already said the value for us here is that we're actually interested in, we call it internally placemaking, but that's when I want to sell us as a startup community. I want to make sure people understand what our soft landing packages are. I'm interested in trade promotion, foreign direct investment. So sometimes there are people that sort of view it as being this is an opportunity to shed the spotlight, on our country because of what we're doing. So, but the key message is if we form a group of advisors, because they're not paid, they have no obligations. We're saying we're just saying, would you help advise us? So when we're doing things in the global ecosystem, we're giving informed communications and opportunities to you that are relevant to what you're doing. We're not trying to run the show, or we're inviting them to be advisors to Gen Global. And some may say, I don't have time, and good luck with it. It's not really on my agenda. But some may say, we're happy to have a representative on that to be plugged into what's going on. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Great question. Thank you. Who's next, Peter? Oh, we're hearing from Singapore.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jaren. I'm from Gen Singapore. It's great to be back here with everyone. We see each other 2 years back. So I just wanted to say thank you for being part of this Gen family, and great to see all of you. Yeah. So, the key thing, I think, Gen is not just about programs or products, right? Products like GEC Pass or whichever, things that maybe didn't work, then we should just kill it, right? Whereas Gen is about outcomes. I think that's where we are here. We have entrepreneurs, we have people who teach entrepreneurship, invest in founders, who have created policies for entrepreneurship. We are all about value creation. So if the program or product doesn't bring value, you may think there's value, but it's not valued by the rest of the community, then is there true value, right? So I think what I like about Gen, I've been involved in G20, JCI, YPO, EO, etc. But what Gen has is a very close group of community. Whenever we reach out, we have a gathering together. We bilaterally also have, multilaterally have collaboration. And I also have my personal story. Why I came back and run and support Gen in Singapore, because in 2013, when I was a teenager, I couldn't attend any networking events. They'll say, go back to school. You're not here. Why are you doing entrepreneurship? That's in Singapore back then. But my first customer through Global Entrepreneurship Week was Bosch. So Bosch, German company, APAC headquarters in Singapore, and gave me a chance, the head of marketing. And I did business and sold across Southeast Asia. And that's because of the Global Entrepreneurship Week. It was a platform, very inclusive, giving us the opportunity for entrepreneurs of all ages, all walks of life, to have a chance, right, to prove our worth. And that's why I think Gen is valuable. And I felt one thing we could do better is that we want to create outcomes from the GEC, right? Every year we meet, we want to do what's next. And I thought a very basic thing about entrepreneurship is about trade, right? Because without global trade, there's no entrepreneurship, right? Creating value through trade. And the simplest thing we could do is we are all together in one family. Why not we come together just maybe in a group chat, which we already have. If we have any things that our entrepreneurs might need, just post it in there, and all of us could respond, in our different time zones. Just say, I need this, I need that, I need to access this, I need this connection. Do you have them? And we reach out and support each other. We can private message and send a group chat. I think that's something we could start with.
Yes.
What do you guys think? Right. Cool.
Thanks,
Thanks, Jonathan.
Wonderful. And and I want to point out that Singapore going forward is going to be extraordinarily important. Okay. The disruption, the U.S. government disruption going on right now is having a ripple effect in a variety of things. So I met for several hours with the leadership of the Japanese government, and we have looked at Japan as being a critical, shall I say, open society for Asia. But when I met with them, Jaron, they said, at the end of the day, the capital of Asia is Singapore. And I know for some of the countries, obviously I'm a huge fan of Bangladesh. I'm going to head very shortly to Bangladesh. I'm going to, I love so many of the countries, obviously Pakistan and India, and as many of you here. But at the end of the day in Asia, Singapore is very important. So I know what you do is important in Singapore, but at the end of the day, I know that a lot of people are looking to you guys because, of course, there's been an exodus from China while the circumstances are where they are, particularly around our investor communities. By the way, I went to China 3 times last year, and I spent a lot of time with very, very successful entrepreneurs. They put together little groups of 20 unicorns, nobody else in the room, and it's a fascinating dynamic going on, and I hope the sort of isolationism that occurs for some nations right now is short-lived, but I do believe we have the responsibility to be as inclusive and welcoming to all the entrepreneurs and investors and advocates, no matter what's happening in their economies, or shall I say, no matter what our political leaders are doing. Please, it's fascinating to watch. But thanks for the Singapore comment. Appreciate it. Who was next, Peter?
It's me.
And then I've got just a couple. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Ghana. Stephen.
Thank you. Mine is not a question, but just to share some knowledge and thoughts. What we've been doing and how it's been impactful. I see the conversation. A lot of our peers are talking about funding. And for us, we've looked at it that donor funding is not something that is really going to be sustainable to our work. So what we have been doing is that actually developing programs and managing contracting programs. So I think somewhere last year, we had a contract with one of our leading banks for Gen was selected. We bid, and how we won that bid was leveraging on this global brand, what Gen is, and the network that Gen has got. So it actually put us on top of all the competitors who came for the bidding, and we won the bid. And they gave us a contract to become like a post-investment monitoring organization for SMEs of the bank. So the bank will give us the data of SMEs they've funded, and we go out to see how they're utilizing the resources of the bank and giving feedback to the bank. It worked very well. They've just renewed that contract for us, and even the bank sent their head of partnership to come with us to GEC to try to even understand our work. When GEC was coming up, I think I spoke with Jonathan. I said, I'm going to see how I'll get our president to come to GEC. But because of what we've been doing and how we've been leveraging media and telling stories of our work, as soon as we sent a letter to the presidency, he was just about, 2 weeks in office. Within 2 weeks, he responded and said, look, I'm not going to be able to make it at this time. However, I'm going to ensure that I give you a strong government delegation to be a part of this, and so that when they come back, they'll be able to sort of tell us how we can work with the organization. This happened because of what we've been doing in the past. The model we are using in Ghana, maybe folks can also look at, is that I see Gen as the way you have EY, PwC, and all these consulting companies work. The local companies, the local firms leverage on that global reputation that, let's say, EY have, and be able to sort of secure services and contract services to deploy locally. So that is what I have been doing. So we've put together what we call like experts in residence. So we've taken experts in different aspects of business who we like, when we're going to bid for things, we get them to lead, and they do that commercially. So when we get that, Gen Ghana gets some percentage with that. They also get some money from it using their professional, services. And we've been doing cross-border stuff. As I speak to you, we saw an initiative that the government now is big on agriculture. What we've done, Gen Ghana has partnered with an organization in Canada to host a Canada-Ghana Agribusiness Summit, just July. And the government is still involved in that. So let's try as much as possible to look at your local ecosystem. What direction is your government going? And leverage on the Gen resources, the Gen network, because I always brag about that. When I go to government rooms, I always use a compass to open doors. And it does work very, very well, for us. So let's take advantage of that and really be able to sort of work with corporations to give you support, like not grants per se, because the grants are not always sustainable. And those in Africa, let me throw it out here. MasterCard is going to spend about $2 billion in Africa, okay?
On youth.
Okay? And the focus area is more like agriculture education. So you should leverage on that. I mean, in Ghana, they've given over $200 million to organizations in Ghana. So those in Africa, you can tap into that and be able to also raise some resources for your programs. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment. This is a great insight because I think for us, Gen Moldova, we evolved basically on how our ecosystem evolved. It was a lot about the people that we got involved and a lot about the policies that were in place. So USAID invested in verticals a lot, so we could not go into verticals. We started working with the cities, with the smaller towns that needed us, but also collaborating with the verticals to get them represented in the city and also with the global networks.
And another quick comment here and follow up to that, and then we'll go to Camino. No, can we? You had something to add?
Did you have something to add to?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is me, Ava, from Iraq. We've been as a GEN participating in GEC for the last 3 years. To be honest, I feel there is so much impact and value in this big gathering. However, I totally emphasize on having a regional events every now and then. For example, we come from Middle East. We have so much similarity between Turkey, Iraq, GCC, Levant, because the ecosystem is very similar. And we find that that's opportunity to gather all the MD from each region in a certain group. That will bring a big value to our network. Plus, there is one thing I wanted to comment on my colleague regarding the the fundraising.
Stephen, yeah, go on.
Stephen, yes, we struggle as a GEN to survive to fundraise because there is so much competitor in the market. Entrepreneurship is becoming a selling point for, to be honest, everywhere. All the donors, big donors, corporates, part of their social corporate responsibility, they donate for. But what make the people who activate GEN in each country, inclusivity. If you give certain part of inclusivity, that will empower your partners in every country to fundraise and to promote your value, your standing in your project. For example, I've been personally advocating for the last maybe 3 years to have our own innovation accelerator center, physical one, not just online training because bringing people physically together, it's but because of our non-exclusivity, they go and we have a very political monopoly, and it's already a very tough place to fundraise. So because of non-exclusivity, they go and give it to even many entities. So having this inclusivity to all these national GEN entity will empower us to fundraise.
Great.
And thank you so much. And thank you, Jonathan, for all this effort. It's been wonderful and great. Bring all these great minds from policymaker, politician, entrepreneur, all in the same place in this very tense time. I feel during this, we are in this era. We have so much tense all over the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. I do want to just respond to a couple of things on that you mentioned on that. That's fantastic. I love the fact that we should focus on, as we talk to the rest of the world, we need to focus on what does make us unique and locally. I like inclusivity. I love performance, meaning at the end of the day, the funders say to me, it's like, you know, we just started the partnership with GoDaddy. We exceeded their expectations by 300%. Okay, so at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but what matters is results. And I think sometimes we moved away from that, and I think we're moving back to that, because I think a lot of the time people were focused on other things. And then the last one that I want to encourage you to just mention is that always keep it positive. Okay, I've talked to so many people in the U.S. About this message, which is, I went to another event last night, and there was a sense of problems, and I'm like, no, we're entrepreneurs. We need to just look at the solutions. Let's not waste a second of our time whining about the problems that are behind us. We just stay very focused on the fact, and I love that to be a characteristic because it's what I see. They're all builders, creators, people that are looking, and they're focused on all the positive elements. So being a glass half full narrative at all times is important. Never hear, the first lesson I got to Washington, D.C., and, I'm a foreigner. I get to Washington, D.C., and I'm working out, I have no idea what I'm going to do, and I eventually get this job on Capitol Hill, and I turned to this guy on day one, and I said, okay, I need a mentor. What's the advice? And he said, well, number one, he said, learn the legislative process, because that's what I was going to do, meaning know your stuff. And the second thing he said, my only big advice to you at the end of my career is, the only mistakes I've really made is when I burned a bridge. So he said, never, ever burn a bridge. And over and over and over again, there are people that have been rude, horrible, mean to us, and to me over the time. And I just, silence will be your best reply. Just don't go there, okay? Don't let them drag you there. Stay positive. And I think if they know that about that, those are characteristics of the Gen brand that I think are so important to preserve. Probably time for one more comment. Is that right, Peter? Or oh, sorry, Camino. I'm sorry. I know you've been there. Who else? Okay, and then. Oh, wow. Okay, so can we try to go faster? Because otherwise you're going to miss lunch. But actually, before I forget, just to let you know how amazing the Gen team is. So there's going to be a no bad ideas session. You can get these at the session. We actually charge, I think, $35 for them for people that don't, but you can have one. We'll have a no bad ideas session at 1 o'clock, so after lunch, and it's in, I forget, session room 6. So if you want to go see what it is and get one of these, after lunch, 1 o'clock, session room 6. It's a great tool if you're doing GEW, by the way, but you can use it year round for stuff. Anyway, go ahead, Camino.
Thanks. Quick question. I understand the model is changing because we had an alliance with one organization, then we moved to have MDs, and now the idea is to work with different organizations, because I think you're doing the right question, is how to improve the impact about entrepreneurship. So in that role, what would you expect from ambassador or national leaders to be our role? Is to help the leader of the programs that are connecting with them or
Yeah.
helping to find the organizations or raising the
Both.
hand and saying, I want to do this? It's
So
just-
ideally, in every country, we have an ambassador like you, and that we, yes. So your role is to work with us. We'll do some initial research, but say, have we got it right? Have we got it wrong? Maybe we teach you something. Who knows? But the point is, you're mostly going to tell us, I think these are the guys that we should really be focused on having an ongoing conversation with. What's really shifted is we're trying to have that conversation with us at Gen Global, okay, not just among themselves locally. Secondly, you're still our lead representative. So as an ambassador, we're still saying, people ask us who to talk to. We're going to say, go to the Gen MD. We're going to still say, go to you, Camila. But what we're doing is we're not limiting that conversation to say you have to go through that gatekeeper. Meaning we want to be able to occasionally have a conversation where we're going to hear other perspectives. For the reasons I gave you, it's not a quality issue. It's just to do with the fact that people have got a lot of things they're doing, and we want to know that we can have a conversation with multiple people. But yes, the role of the ambassador has not changed. You're still the person that we would turn to and say, you're the voice. I mean, like in Japan, for example. I'm not going to do anything without copying Hero. If I do anything in any of your countries, or our team is going to be copying, obviously copying in you. But we're looking for you to take the lead. Yeah. So yes. So I think Peter. So the idea is that we'll come to you with our research, you tell us, socialize it with us, and then we invite them to serve on the, and in fact, we'll invite to serve on the council. We'll invite to serve as an advisor. But we want to come to you guys where there's already leadership in place. We're going to come to you first and say, first of all, and then we'll talk about how we build it. Because we're not requiring us to have 20 people, 30 people, whatever. We're just saying we want to start and let it grow. Let's start with 2 or 3 people, maybe allow it to emerge. So, correct. And so we would work with you in making sure that that group makes sense. And for some of you that are very keen to be as actively involved as the more actively involved you're willing to do, we'll ask you to go to them and ask them. For some of them, you may say, I think it's better that it comes from Gen Global. But, that's the approach. Okay. Ginny?
Yes, good morning. I'm Eugenia from Curacao. I would like to thank the staff of GEN for making this Congress very good for us. It was very good to meet all other GEN organizations, socialize, but it was a learning experience up to now. What I would like to say that the brand, the global brand does play a role with us. For example, let me give you an example. From Europe, they organized the Erasmus Plus program, and a lot of people from education do the exchanges. We have seen that the last couple of years, although we have been promoting Global Entrepreneurship Week in our country, when they visit the other countries and they come across the GEN from the other countries, from Europe, for example, they come back to us and say, oh, what you have been telling us, we have met that organization outside Curacao. So we want to be part of it. So the job they have been doing is helping us also. So I would say the global bank, the global brand does have positive things for us. And regarding the funding, I think Peter mentioned, I think it's a good idea also. For example, we have FedEx. We saw them a lot mentioned in GEN. They approach us, we approached them in Curacao, and they told us they read about FedEx in helping GEN, but they don't have contact with the GEN representative higher up. So I think it could be very good for GEN to introduce us into, or introduce them together so they know what they have been doing on a global stage, so they can do it also in our country. Because I've requested that, but probably my mail got stuck. But I'm giving an example, sustaining what Peter said, that sometimes the local representative don't know what the higher organization is doing. And it could be very good for us, but also
Right.
for Chen.
Yeah.
And thank you also.
No, that's wonderful. A quick comment on that. So first of all, I like to think, and you can point it out to me if it's ever the case, we do answer absolutely every email. And so if you ever don't get an answer to an email, please let us know. I'll just let Peter know, let me know. Secondly, subject to there not being a massive negative reaction to some of our revised strategy, we are assigning every country a point of contact on the Gen Global staff. Now, there's some people like Pretty that will have a lot of countries, and Peter, there's some people that will have fewer countries. But the point is, you will have a person on the Gen Global staff that can be your liaison. It's not their only job to be your liaison, but they'll be there, so you'll know that, and we'll communicate that. And in fact, if you come to the party tonight, I don't know whether we're going to do it at the party, but we'll definitely make sure we communicate to you in short order sort of who that point of contact is. So I appreciate that. I will say probably the biggest challenge we have as a network is communication. You've no idea how. I'd say it's probably a broken record conversation for a long time. I'm like, so have we heard back from so-and-so? No, I've sent emails, I've sent whatever. So, I'm very keen to make sure we continue to refine that process. We've expanded the WhatsApp presence of how we do things. We've adjusted our email server process. I mean, everything to make it possible that, we've said you don't have to have a Gen Global email if you're using another email. Everything we can do to make sure that you're actually getting the message. As you know, we push out newsletters. We've got our WhatsApp groups. So we're doing it, and we hold these events. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we're communicating. But I think having that liaison will be important. And the only challenge I'm saying is we're willing to put the paid staff time in to do that. What we need you to do is make sure that you at least acknowledge their email, even if you don't answer that question. So just say, got it, understood, thanks. Just so we know that you're alive and well. What we're looking to avoid, and quite frankly we've had to do, is we've had several people in the network that, for legitimate reasons, are just MIA. In fact, and when they're MIA, and then they suddenly come out of the woodwork right before the GEC and say, can I come to the GEC? And I'm like, we haven't heard from you in 2 years. We had somebody in Mexico that came out of the woodwork. After that's 3 years we hadn't heard from them. It was like, upset. Where's my airline ticket? I want to come to the GEC, But anyway, but we love you all. But the point is, acknowledging the communication would be fantastic. Can I also just quickly, I forgot to comment on one thing that's brought up by Iraq here. If I could just say, we hear you about the regional events. And I don't know whether everybody knows this, but we've started the GEC Plus regional events. We've done them, of course, in Asia last year, even to the sacrifice of, because we had to move Melbourne too close to 2024, we ended up deciding let's just do 2 regional events. We did one in South Africa in March, and we did one in Puerto Rico for the Latin American community. Good event, eh? Excellent, fantastic. And a lot of the discussions, of course, were in Spanish, and which is the same thing would happen in terms of Arabic. If you want those, William charters the point of contact. He can explain. You can either do it informally, where you can invite the region together. I'll never forget the Europeans. If Peter was still here, he might remember it too. But the guy in Iceland said, let's just get all the Europeans together. I'll tell you what, come into Iceland. I can't pay your flights, but come in and I'll give you some hotels. We used to do a European meetup frequently in other places. I know they were hosting one in Germany. It was mostly around GEW, but the point is you can either do impromptu meetups, in which case tell us so we can endorse it and encourage it and fuel it and try to participate in it. Or you can ask for a GEC Plus. And just so you know, this information is all available from William. but we've got 4 requests for GC Plus coming out of this, because there's a lot of people say, we want the GC. We say, sorry, I don't think you're, I know you think you can do it, but I don't think you can do it. So we often turn around, meaning financially. And so what we do is we essentially say we have a GC Plus. We have 2 models of the GC Plus. We call it GC Plus Lite, but one of them is, it's the bigger one of the 2 is like Puerto Rico. It feels very much like a GC. It's just that the concentration of the discussion is all around Latin America. And I have something very important to say to you about that. After that meeting, we are about to forge a new relationship with the IDB. And the good news is I told them we will work with you, but we want it to be Latin American and the Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, and they support that. So we're trying to hear where we're getting that stuff wrong. But the one in Puerto Rico, I think I've had nothing but we did. The one in South Africa is so successful that the government's committed to host it every 2 years. As you know, we even have a date, September of 2026. It'll be in Cape Town, where we have our newest hub. But I say that, but don't expect that we're going to go out. They're all going to come. It's not a global GEC, okay? It's for Africa. So anybody's welcome to come to any GEC, but you're not going to get the same, shall I say, network hosting. We're not going to be able to pay for things. People say, well, why can't I go to the GC Plus in Africa? Can you sponsor me, whatever? And we can't. We on the GC Pluses, they have a regional focus for the reasons you said. There's a lot of similarities that we'd like to go deeper on as Arabic cultures, or Maghreb cultures, for example. Oh, right. Talking about doing one in Kurdistan, yeah? Yeah. So I will say that we had several people come to us from the United States actually saying, can we have, so which is very nice. I mean, it's a credit to the model we have. By the way, what do you think of the village this year, guys? Nice? Great. Great. Well, can I just tell you, credit to Indiana, because this is what happens. If you ever do host the GC, I'm just going to say, some places want to micromanage us. We've done this for 15 years. We know how to do it in our sleep. It's really not as hard work as everyone. You give us lots of credit. Thank you so much indeed. But if people let us do our job, we can do it. The trouble is when our host country says, you got to do it this way, you got to do it this way, you have to use this, they come up with all these things. And, that's why sometimes we decide it's not worth doing, because it's going to be too much work for us. And there's no disrespect to that. They have reasons why they have those rules. But, so for example, we're not going to do another GC or GC Plus unless we control the registration in the app. How was the app, by the way? Good? All right. That's not easy. Every single session at this GC has got an AI commentary about it already up. Do you guys know this? Have any of you seen the Google Note LM? Have you guys used this? It's so cool. So I gave a talk, and someone sent me a link minutes after the talk, and it's like I gave the State of the Union, and you're watching the local newscasters, commentators talking about your speech. And AI does this. You just upload the talk, and it went in, and it had things like, it's interesting because, Jonathan Altmans has evolved his perspective on this. I go back to his speech in 2013 on this topic, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And these are 2 people, a man and a woman, having a conversation about my speech within 10 minutes of me completing the speech. It's like, anyway, the joys of AI. Trust me, you're going to find cool stuff every day. As Mark Cuban said, experiment, go out, use. If you don't use them, you're not going to find out what they do. I know I've been monopolizing. Are there any pressing last questions?
Really short.
Okay, short.
Yes. Well, I think something that has been going on the last 17 years is the relationship. I think we have to keep on going. For example, a young girl went to Namibia to do an exchange for 6 months, and that was great. But we don't show it too much. We had a IDB project, International Development Bank, between Dominican Republic, Panama, and Bolivia. And we did it just because we were doing the same things. We had another project International Development Bank between Argentina, Paraguay, and Bolivia. And we had another one with SEBRAE in the border of Bolivia and Paraguay. But our biggest problem that we had in Bolivia is to put together an entity, a legal entity, to be part of the whole action. But I think building up a new committee...
Don't worry about that.
No, I know,
yeah.
but building a new committee, that will change everything.
Yeah.
Because the people that has to be involved in the activities of entrepreneurship will be willing to be there.
Right.
I think that's the main point. Another thing that I think we should keep on going is the constant relationship between countries. Related to the committee that you are proposing, we should have also an interaction between countries like South America, Central America, Caribbean, Arab countries, Asians. I think that will also build up a better global entrepreneurship network. If we do that, it will do a really good answer of what you're asking right now. I think those are my points.
Wonderful, thank you. I just want to stress again, if it's a question of channeling resources, we have so many mechanisms to do that. It can be one of the lead organizations in country, it can be Gen Global. One of the benefits of being a nonprofit organization is that we're set up and we've actually got legal entities in other economies that we can utilize to process funding. But beyond that, I'm so happy to hear that. I've got to ask, have you done an interview in the studio? Okay. If you've got a story to tell about why it's working and examples of impact, please either see Peter or see Catherine, because we'd love you to go in the studio this afternoon. We've got a podcast studio. We've also got an interview studio. That would be great. Peter, can you? I don't mean to treat you like an advocate, but it's great when I hear these examples. We did this and we connected with that, and you've all got examples, yeah? And then you told the story about Iraq, okay? Have you been in the studio? Yeah. Okay, did you tell that? Did you say that in the studio? Oh, good. You used the podcast studio. Great. Awesome. Thank you. But I do want to tell you, by the way, our ability to bring additional collective resources to you and to the table, we don't do this enough. We just don't think about it, but because we're just so busy executing. But if you have stories of things, good things that happened as a result of any aspect of your work with the Compass, please. And if there's something you haven't said and you're willing to say on camera, please let Peter know, and he'll connect you to Catherine, who's running the studio. It's going on throughout the rest of the afternoon, so maybe we could find a way to get that briefly on camera. That'd be great. Are we, last one? I know, I don't want to, what's that?
Yes, Jonathan, this is Ven Lantazo from Cameroon. I stand up to say, with the discussions that we've already had, most of my questions have been answered. And I just wish to sincerely thank the session this time around, and to bring just two specificities about Cameroon. Because this is the third time I'm participating in GEC. We were in Melbourne, we were in South Africa, Cape Town, and this is the third time. Our managing director, Gilles Lewat, whom we know so well, is very, very vibrant in Cameroon. He's working extremely hard, but he has health issues that are actually a limiting factor for him to deploy, to give the best of himself. And I agree with you that the mechanism, the setup, the organization that we have in every country does not matter much. What is important if we are getting to the key players or the entrepreneurs themselves. So what we did in Cameroon is that we created a board of directors, putting him, Mr. Lewat, as the managing director, and we see how we can support him, even though with the pressure coming to from the government. If you see, like today, our Minister for Small and Middle-Sized Enterprises will be landing today in Indiana at the end of the Congress. And he will come, and what he has discovered...
What time is he going to be here?
Pardon?
If you don't know this story, by the way, just to let you know, we don't do visas. But we got involved in this absurd situation that for 9 months we've been trying to get visas for a delegation of 60 people from Zambia. They hosted they had bringing in, all sorts of people. I just learned this now. So you're saying at last the minister is coming, is that correct?
Yes, he's landing this evening, not visa problem, but because of authorization from the presidency.
Okay, all right.
Good. And he will be coming, will be lodging at Western, I pray. And the idea of having one liaison person per country is a wonderful idea for us in Cameroon because it's going to help us have a lot. Because the Ministry for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises uses GEN as a tool to realize its programs. But meanwhile, here we have done our best to sign MOUs with the Michigan Association of Female Entrepreneurs to get the one arm of the entrepreneurs to be replicated in Cameroon. We signed an MOU with the Nigerian Entrepreneurship Skills and Development Center of the University of Lagos, which we think we should work with them to see exactly how entrepreneurship education is propelled. So the board chairman here, Mr. Alphonse, is the owner of the best private university in Cameroon with more than 6,000 students, which is propagating entrepreneurship education. I am the vice chairman of board of directors. Our managing director, Mr. Lewart, is what we are putting on board as the actor, the executor, and the planner, while we sit in to play maybe the role, like you were saying, as advisors. But what we are validating is the fact that if GEN, with the multiple platforms and programs, tools that we have, if we can have a platform tool that we can download, financing like our brother from Ghana equally said, it will be more efficient in our own country because they will have evaluation methods and tools to see the efficiency. So if Mr. Jonathan can please give us time when the minister will arrive for a 5-minute working session that you introduce to us our liaison person, it will be very, very efficient for us. And we should note that Cameroon is not only Cameroon, but the whole of Central Africa.
Yeah. Great. And fantastic.
Yes.
And I'd be more than happy to meet with the minister this afternoon if we just let Peter know.
Thank you so much.
William will try to make it work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Apologies to everybody I didn't do. Somehow there was, I don't know why it was so difficult. There are 24 hours in the day, but somehow at this event I don't get to do all the things I want to do. But anyway, hey, bless you. Thank you so much indeed for Cameroon. Thank you very much for making me a king last night. I'm very honored to my... No, but I love the model you're talking about. That's really fantastic. And we'll continue. And I appreciate the feedback on the idea of having a point of contact. Well, don't forget there's an event tonight. Okay, just very, very quick because the poor tech team was supposed to be out of here by 12. So.
Sorry, I'm Ronald Barzola from Peru. So
yes.
we had all the community activate in Peru many years ago. I came here. I would love to reconnect. We have a very mature ecosystem there. Thanks for the invitation. To Romina, he was leading all the delegation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tell her tomorrow we will have a breakfast with all Peruvians stay here from that day here and then they travel. And we very a pleasure to keep working with this community.
Well, thank you to Peru for giving us a new pope. We also thank you for the Papa, for the Peru. And we also appreciate Alejandra Molina on our team, who, although New York based, is from Peru. So bless you. Thank you for having such a great delegation here. All right, it's time for lunch. Don't forget there's an event tonight. We will be around all afternoon in the village. Please, if we haven't said hello, be sure to come up and say hello, and we'll go from there. And don't forget, 1 o'clock, no bad ideas, number 6. Number 6, 1 o'clock, no bad ideas. You can take your lunch in there, I think.